This is Purpose of Life. Welcome to this program called Purpose of Life. Thank you for allowing us to come to your home. Two very important words, purpose and life. Today, joining us in our studios is Dr. Anand Babu, and we're going to talk about the word purpose, and we're going to also define life in a different context. But let me straight give you a little introduction about the guest. Dr. Anand Babu is a sociologist. He helps organizations grow. In other words, he helps them improve their performance. And today we're going to talk about life performance. And he also helps them identify what the organization's purpose is. Now let's directly go to Anand and find out what he sees or how he defines the word purpose. Welcome to the program, Anand.
Thank you, Aswin. It's a real pleasure to be here discovering our purposes even through this program.
Very good. Anand, the word purpose has several meanings to several people.
Absolutely.
And everything which is created in this earth has a purpose. That everybody understands.
Yes.
So if that is the purpose, why is it that humans find it difficult to actually find the purpose? See, every product, the laptop in front of us,
True.
is there for a purpose.
For a purpose.
Right. We can't expect a refrigerator to do a laptop's purpose. So if that is the case, then why is this word so tough to understand? Explain that. What is your understanding on this word purpose?
Okay, I'll attempt explaining how I look at purpose, Ashwin.
Right.
I would look at it like a triangle. So there's a creator who created you, who created me. And here we, his creation. The creator and the creation should connect to the rest of the world. The meeting point of all of this is where a purpose is birthed. God created you for a particular purpose. And God called you into this wonderful television ministry. Now, if you didn't have the world to interact with you, could you have discovered your purpose?
No.
No. And that's true for everyone that God created, Ashwin. So there's God who created, and there's a person that was created. In this interaction, there is something that this person should do for the world. And bringing that out is the beginning of the discovery of one's purpose.
So there's a lot of depth to what you're saying, but I'd like to go slightly deeper inside.
Sure.
So if that's so loud and clear, then why is it that people there's no joy in the life? So there's a joy missing. I've met friends who tell me they're working for a living.
True.
They're not working for the purpose.
True.
So there's a difference between living and there's a difference between living for a purpose. So so how do you, if it was so easy, why is it that people are missing it, or why is it that we tend to miss it? I'm including you and me. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very interesting question, and it's a question I bet many people have asked in some part of life.
Right.
The answer is a little complex, but let's try to kind of demystify it.
Right.
So we're all good at something, and we realize that at some point in life. And have you realized that, Ashwin, somewhere, let's say in your school and college, you probably realize that you're good at something.
Yeah.
We are good in something, and sometimes we love doing that thing.
Right.
You know, very often we've heard this conversation with parents. You can do it well. Why don't you do it?
Right.
But it's not that everyone does what they are good at in a good way. So there's the first meeting point, the first cusp, if I should say. Things that we're good at and things that we love doing. When these two meet, we say a person is very passionate about what they're doing. Like take, for example, you doing this particular program. You're very passionate about it.
Right.
You're good at it and you love doing that. There are some things that we're good at and we are paid for. And we call that a profession. So that's passion on one side and profession. So the minute we're paid for it, it becomes a profession. Sometimes the things that we are paid for is what the world needs. And when that meets, the things that we're paid for and what the world needs, when that meets, we build a vocation around it. It's not just a profession, it's a vocation, and slightly more we engaged in it, we build a career around it and things like that. Sometimes there are things that we love doing and the world needs it, we build a mission around it. So there are four corners, so to say. On one side there's passion, and one side there's profession, and then your vocation, and then you see a mission. Purpose is discovering you amidst this. You can't take one over the other. You can't say, I'm so passionate about this, so I don't need a profession. You can't say, this is my mission, so I don't need to work. No. Every person has to find their purpose, and purpose is found amidst a discovery of all of this.
So it's a discovery.
It's a discovery, absolutely. Unfortunately, we are not like these beautiful computers we have in front of us which come with clearly written instruction manuals. We interact with God, with His Word, with people around, with circumstances, sometimes very difficult ones, to discover our purpose.
Anand, I'll just, based on what you are saying, let me make a statement and you can tell me if it's right or wrong. The statement is career, to choose your career, you can actually pay and get a career. For example, you want to get into engineering.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
You can pay for a course and that can become your career. In turn, that can become your life.
Okay.
But a passion or a purpose-driven passion is not paid for. It is driven or inbuilt inside your life.
Okay.
So, am I right in saying that, or am I not right? Explain.
That's a cool statement.
Right.
I like to divide it into two things.
Right.
Let me take the first part of what you said.
Right.
I can get an engineering seat by paying a hefty fee.
Right.
But will I be good in engineering? Is a different thing. I may be there, but I may not feel fulfilled.
Right.
Because there may be someone who didn't get in like how I got in, but is doing better than me. It is those moments, defining moments, that take me closer to my purpose. Now, if I got in there, having the wherewithal to get me in, but not get out. In the college I studied, there used to be a joke. Our professors used to tell us, it is easy for you to get in, it's difficult to get out.
Got it.
That's because they are not really finding their place within.
Right.
The second part of what you said is very interesting too. Because sometimes you can actually get paid for discharging your passion. So sometimes the world can think it's this or that, but in reality, a discovery of the purpose is both, Ashwin. And if you can come to a place where I'm there, I have the talent, I enjoy it, and the world pays me, and I know the world needs it, that's a true discovery of purpose.
Looking at our own situation, the way we have grown up in India, it's a very mark-driven society.
Absolutely.
Everything is not on passion, it's more on the marks.
It's all, absolutely, it's more on the progress card.
What's your take on that? I mean, but still India is such a progressive country, you look at the talent pool we have, it's amazing. But however it is, it finally comes to that paper which says whether you are good or not good.
True.
How do you really evaluate seeing a piece of paper? What's your take on that, Anand?
Having started my career as a teacher, I felt very sad by that situation, Ashwin. Sometimes parents have pushed their children into something, and that push has actually taken a long time for them to discover their purpose.
Okay. Anand, I've really thought through this topic on this exact word called waiting. And it had to test my patience because waiting itself, the word itself made me very impatient. But before we get into the actual plan, purpose and all, when you hear the word waiting, what comes to your mind? Waiting is now getting into something called like a bad word, Nobody wants to wait. We are in a DNA world where it's very digital oriented. Uber, anything you call, it happens.
Absolutely.
In fact, even now, the health checkup also, they come to your home. Everything is
true,
instant. So how do you look at this word waiting?
Actually, you've chosen the wrong guy to ask the right question. Because this is one of the things I'm really bad in, Ashwin.
Okay.
I'll tell you about a time. I was in France for some time. And one day we had a very late evening meeting, and it went on till about 11:30 at night.
Okay.
And that was the last tram to get me back home. And as I came and stood at the tram station, I looked at the time. Wait time, 11 minutes.
Okay.
It's late. I know it's the last tram. If I miss it, I'll have to walk another 45 minutes. But I have 11 minutes. And it's about 3 degrees cold at that point in time. What's the logical thing to do, Ashwin?
I mean, wait.
What absolutely. What else could I do? But you know what? I walked till the next station just to see the wait time reduced to 7. I'm sure you'd say this is one of the craziest things to do, but I tell you, I did it. And that's me. And that's most people in the world today. We don't like to wait. For example, we want to keep moving. We want to keep doing something. We want to feel the action. We want to focus on progressing, at least in our eyes. And that's the most difficult thing about waiting, is being there doing nothing. Just before we took a break, you spoke about waiting. There are actually two parts to it. One is waiting before you know your purpose, and second is waiting after you've discovered your purpose.
Oh, so before and after.
Absolutely. And Ashwin, what do you think is more difficult?
I think both has got its own wavelength.
Absolutely.
But I think waiting before is got its own dynamics to the whole aspect. But after you know it, to wait is even more frustrating.
Exactly. Because when you're waiting before you know your purpose, you don't know what you're waiting for.
Correct.
And so the search and the anxiety and the agony is very different. But after you've known, it's like you've got your ticket.
You want to know.
You want to board,
Yeah.
and they say the flight is delayed.
That's very frustrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So no matter where waiting is, even if it is before a discovery of the purpose or after, the kind of anxiety and the agony may differ. However, waiting is difficult at any point in time.
So waiting.
You spoke about the instant generation.
Yeah.
Look at it today. How many 24/7 stores do we have? Today, when you look at the 24/7 stores, why do you think they're increasing, Ashwin? Have you thought of this?
People at any given point want to just go and grab something and keep moving. They don't want to wait till the next day.
Exactly. People don't want to do that. And today it's almost acceptable that, let's say I have an appointment with someone and I come 2 minutes late. I'm so apologetic about making them wait. So it seems a wrong thing to do, to wait. And that's the whole thing I think people should understand and look at waiting in a very different way. Because the way the world is, waiting is not a good thing to do. Wait at the traffic light. The minute it turns green, the 10th guy down the line wants to be the first to cross the green. But it's impossible. He has to wait for 9 people to move on.
Correct.
Now, that's a thing which people have all experienced.
Correct.
But we don't pause unless you get a program like this to say why.
Why? And even at the time when the flight lands, you find that many people just immediately stand up to take the bag.
True.
But it's not the flight. See, the door has to open. So where are they going?
True.
They have to wait. But by default, are humans impulsive to? By default, are we made not to wait, or what's your take on that?
I think looking at the way societies are evolving, Ashwin, and take that's a classic example. I travel a lot too. And I do know that there are some people who've checked in their luggage, and no matter how quick they get to the baggage belt, they leave only when the baggage arrives. But how do you fill in that period? You fill in that period through activity. Sometimes when you have no activity to do, you fill it in through anxiety. And activity and anxiety are things that you fill in while waiting either for a discovery of your purpose or for the fulfillment of your purpose. But there's something I want to add, Ashwin. Both are highly destructive.
Both are destructive.
Absolutely. Whether it's anxiety or activity without progress, they're both destructive. So take the same case of someone who's just stood up in a plane seat as soon as the plane landed. He's not getting 1 inch closer to home.
Correct.
He's just there.
He's anxious.
He's anxious. He's getting angry about the first guy down there because he's not moved.
Correct.
He's upset about the door not being open.
Correct.
When there's nothing he can do.
Correct.
I've learned, one of the things that I've learned about waiting, after waiting and being anxious and getting angry, is that you can do absolutely nothing in those moments.
Anand, as you were just talking about this waiting, let's look at some global leaders of how long they have waited.
Wow.
It's just a thought, look at Nelson Mandela, one of the amazing characters whom I really admire. Look at the years of jail period he went through, imprisonment. But he never gave up.
True.
Look at the father of our own nation, Gandhiji. Look at the long years of sacrifice and waiting he had to do. And of course, you can keep naming leaders.
True.
What do you think kept them going in this waiting period? I'm talking from a very broad angle. Leaders who are movers and shakers. They really moved not just a small group, but they moved nations.
True.
I mean, imagine to lead a country like India.
South Africa and India.
It's amazing. And so what really makes these leaders stand apart? And they also go through what you're talking about, the waiting period.
True.
So what do you think was the DNA made like?
These are iconic characters you've spoken about, Ashwin.
Correct.
They had to lead large number of people. They had to fight against the opposition. They had to establish something that the nation hadn't seen before. For me, that's a discovery of purpose.
Okay.
They look at a need. The need is to be free, for people to express themselves. They look at a caliber. Hey, I can do this. I can get people out. I can help them to see differently, think differently. I can speak to the government that's now holding us back. They had a talent, they had a skill. And they said, I will invest this skill in the need of the society. And I think that both of these leaders saw the future before it was there.
Or the seeing the future is very important.
Absolutely. Take Abraham, for example. God told him something, and I bet he saw the future before it arrived. And that, I think, is a big thing that keeps people okay to wait.
How do you see God's waiting? What do we learn from that?
It's very interesting that you mentioned this, Ashwin, because when you take purpose itself, my purpose cannot be discharged without you. Your purpose cannot be discharged with people around the world. So while purpose is so internal, you do need people around you to discharge it. I'll take the classic case of Viktor Frankl, the man who wrote the oft-quoted book, Man's Search of Meaning. In that book, he talks about the Jewish concentration camps. And he spoke about how so many thousands were killed. They died, they gave up their lives. But there were a few who still stayed alive, and Viktor Frankl was one of those survivors. He fought back. And when he talks about people like him who survived the harsh concentration camps, they had a few things in mind. For example, what would I do after I got back home? What will I tell my children when I see them? For Viktor Frankl himself, how do I write a book that I started writing earlier? And he completed that book as a survivor after the end of the war in 9 days.
9 days.
9 days. Man's Search for Meaning was completed in 9 days. It took years of pain, enduring that pain, for him to get there. So what I learn often things like this, and there are so many examples that he quote about. There would be one man who's thinking, there's someone who needs a shoelace. Tomorrow morning, can I give them my shoelace? Questions like that, seemingly silly, have kept people alive. So purpose is something that's beyond us, that's outside of us, and sees how we're useful to the world outside. And in God waiting and in God sending His Son, God didn't send Jesus because it was only for Jesus' sake. God sent Jesus for our sake. The purpose of Jesus was fulfilled in the salvation of mankind. And I see that understanding as key to make that period of waiting meaningful.
So there's so much in waiting.
Absolutely. Waiting, Ashwin, is actually designed by God. The society has made us think that waiting is bad. We've fast-tracked everything. Take internet, for example. I remember when we started off using the internet, we used to dial in. You had to wait a couple of minutes before it connected to the net.
Correct.
And if it connected, 2 Mbps was great. Today, we're talking about 200 Mbps at home. Why? Because we can't wait. However, when you look at God who created all of this, who is above time, I think He did put in each of His creation a waiting element. Take a seed, for example. The Bible so beautifully speaks about the seed. The seed has in it a waiting period. Now, if the seed did not accept the waiting period, we won't have a tree. A baby has a waiting period of 9 months. While very often we look at the Israelites as wandering in the desert for 40 years, I think that was kind of a gestation period for them. Like a seed, like a baby, like the Israelites, each of us do have this waiting period. Now, when we see that waiting period in the light of a purpose, it becomes meaningful.
Meaningful, yeah.
But without the pursuit of purpose, it's painful, Ashwin. Now, have you experienced this in your life?
Couple of times, for me, waiting has always been a time for equipping.
Absolutely.
I use the word equipping. So, in my own personal life, I've seen waiting period as something where God has allowed us to get equipped.
To prepare. Absolutely.
So, waiting is also preparation.
I know.
And waiting also kind of reshapes your faith
perspective
on life, faith. It brings a different dimension. And waiting is frustrating. I should admit, Anand, waiting is very, very frustrating. Because waiting can actually dampen your whole spirit. And that's why I like the Bible, Anand, because the Bible talks about people who have waited.
True.
Waited and who have succeeded in life because they had God's agenda.
By the way, who's the first biblical character who waited?
I think The one man who's impressive in the first initial part of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, is Noah.
Hmm.
I mean, look at a scenario, Anand. There's no rain. Nobody has seen a large flood. And God is choosing a family, a man, and says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring this flood, build an ark. Nothing around him is so conducive.
Mhm.
But yet, he had to believe, he had to act,
Mhm.
and he had to wait.
You know, it brings a picture in front of my mind. Today, if you talk about a flood,
Yeah.
I can imagine a flood.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been so difficult for Noah because he didn't even have a visual image
Yeah.
of the future.
Absolutely. But then, Anand, in this waiting, also this it also reshapes your complete trust in God.
True.
I think some of the characters which we will talk about
Mhm.
in the Bible who have really stood apart have been tested in this waiting.
Hmm.
So the more you are waiting, and the more you come out of this waiting process with the help of God, defining the purpose actually enables us to really tell us whether we are successful in achieving what God's plan is, not even your plan.
True.
Because God has some good plans for us.
Mhm.
I use the underline the word good.
Good.
He's not having some plan.
Mhm.
A career can give you a plan.
Hmm.
A purpose will give you a good plan.
Amen to that.
So that's my definition of career and a purpose. A career can only take you to one level,
Mhm.
but a purpose will actually give you satisfaction.
Complete fulfillment.
Yeah.
Very true.
So Anand, as time is short, can we just dwell upon the 3 or 4 takeaways from this program? And in the next program, we'll talk about men who have been tested in waiting and what was the good they learned in this
While
testing
waiting.
period.
Okay.
So that's what we'll deal in the next week's program.
Mhm.
But just to summarize this program, can you give us 3 or 4 takeaways?
One takeaway, Ashwin, for me is that you can discover your purpose within a career, within what you're passionate about, within your profession. So discovery is very important.
So discovery.
Discovery.
That's the first thing.
That's the first thing. The second takeaway for me is that I know that waiting is painful. Waiting is more painful if you don't know why you're waiting for. So the why comes from a discovery of your purpose. So that gives meaning to your waiting. And third takeaway, I think waiting is designed by God Himself.
Designed by God.
Designed by God. Like He put into the seed, that principle of waiting, if you do not embrace it, is going to cause unnecessary anxiety
And pain.
and pain, which is going to give us no result at all.
Don't miss the next episode on purpose of life, and the topic is waiting. Write to us, call us, send in your comments. Thank you and God bless you.